Get into the action with Camp Cretaceous Hidden Adventure on Netflix.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another Jurassic World video, where today we have the official public release date of Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous Hidden Adventure. Yes, that's right, it's out right this instant. So feel free to go and head on over to Netflix to give it a try, and don't forget to also check out my review of this interactive episode that I posted a couple days ago. However, for today's video, we'll be discussing various events that take place throughout this interactive episode and what exactly happens upon doing so. In today's video, we'll be discussing what happens if you choose to bring Bumpy with you or leave Bumpy behind during the opening segment of Camp Cretaceous Hidden Adventure. And obviously, there will be some spoilers in this video, so just make sure you're aware of that before continuing. But without any more delays, here's what happens to Bumpy in Hidden Adventure. Hidden Adventure has finally arrived to our screens, and along with it comes with a brand new story with these campers. Or shall I say, stories? Because with how much content there is, in just this singular episode alone, you can make multiple stories, which is fantastic. This is an interactive episode, meaning you get to make the decisions and take control of the characters from Darius's point of view. Throughout this episode, you make loads of decisions that would show different scenes or take you down different paths. One of these involve our beloved Ankylosaurus, Bumpy. During the opening segment of Camp Cretaceous Hidden Adventure, you're tasked with the decision of choosing whether or not to side with Ben and bring Bumpy along for this adventure, or perhaps side with Brooklyn and decide not to bring Bumpy at all. Now, we had an early screenshot release of this last week, and we suspected that bringing Bumpy along could cause her to die, yet save a potential campmate. Or leaving her behind might cause her to be ambushed by the Tarbosaurus. Now, none of that really happened in either decision that you make. But it's still cool and an interesting thought as to what happens if you choose to bring her or not. So, for me personally, I chose not to bring Bumpy with us on the first original playthrough that I did of this interactive episode. Upon deciding no, you're met with Darius stating that it could put her in danger and to let her rest. However, the story does continue. You're tasked with trying to locate Brentford's note, which is a crazy guy that was never introduced to Jurassic canon before, and as we know, Hidden Adventure cannot be considered canon. However, having a new character like Brentford was kind of weird, yet wacky but cool at the same time, I guess. He was a bit of a nutter, let's say. But we still had to look for Brentford's note that we can see through the camcorder that Darius was able to capture whilst in the Tarbosaurus nest. And using that, we can now locate the note, which would then hopefully tell us where the food was stashed, which we then find out as Hidden Adventure, and then the story continues. So the story does continue as normal, and the campmates pursue to continue to Blue's pen. As we can see from the video recording, this is where the note was tossed away. Whilst Darius starts to look over at the videotape, he starts to take a look as to what bush the note was left in, and eventually he is able to decipher and find out which one it was. Whilst the campers are down on the ground, he's at the top of the railing, exactly where Owen Grady was in Jurassic World. He's able to identify which bush the note was left in and tells Kenji it should be that one. Kenji leans down, has a look, and truth be told, the note is right there. They're able to then find the note and they end up reading it out, which they then learn about Hidden Adventure. They discuss whether or not they should pursue and try to find out what this Hidden Adventure is because of the wacky craziness of who Brentford was. However, Darius, being the camp leader, decides that we should ignore Brentford's crazy character and instead try to work out what Hidden Adventure is. After this, we're given a decision on whether or not we get to choose to go to Main Street to find a book where we can then identify what Hidden Adventure was, and then hopefully have a map as well. Or, on the contrary, we have the other option to go through the tunnels where we are then met with the Sinoceratops and also Toro the Carnotaurus. This then allows us to come face to face and see another rematch or battle of these two creatures, and eventually the campers are able to find out how to go through the tunnels to get to security to then find out where Hidden Adventure is. However, before all of this takes place, Blue starts knocking rocks towards the campers, and the campers take an interest to these rocks, as I'm sure that they remember from what they saw in the camcorder, Blue likes to play around with the rocks and try to keep her sisters away from the food. As we know, she's a very intelligent velociraptor. But she ends up knocking the rocks into the perspective of the campers and then leaves the campers face to face with Blue. She then chases them out and lets them go as the campers manage to get away. So that's what happens when you choose not to take Bumpy with you on this journey. Essentially, it's where the campmates use their brains and try their very hardest in an attempt to try and locate the scrunched up note that the workers threw away into the raptor paddock that they received from Brentford. They end up finding this note, but not before Blue is there and taunts them. Thankfully though, they get away and then proceed to go to Main Street or the tunnels. Nevertheless, that all takes place without Bumpy. But what happens if we choose to bring Bumpy instead? Well, you end up siding with Ben on this one, and Darius mentions that bringing Bumpy could end up being a big help so that she can alert them in case of any danger nearby. So the story continues, but this time you're bringing Bumpy along with you for the ride as she may be able to help out. The story is slightly similar, but this time you have some scenes where Bumpy is included there instead. The story continues as it follows. The campers arrive at the raptor paddock and bring Bumpy along with them. There's a snap of leaves and twigs that spook Kenji and has him on edge wondering what that sound was. He's deciding if it came from Blue or the Tarbosaurus. However, it's just Bumpy being her usual self and running around and then proceeding to graze on the grass within the enclosure. Kenji, relieved to have found out that it was just Bumpy, proceeds to move forward with the campers as Darius tries to retrace the steps of what is shown on the camera. Bumpy doesn't really do all that much at this time as she kind of just stands there and makes a noise or two, and then continues to eat the grass whilst the campers think it's safe as they see no sign of velociraptors. Bumpy and Kenji come closer again as they both scout out where this note was tossed away in a similar area to what we see in the video. Comedically, however, Bumpy then turns around and knocks Kenji over with her tail. I'm sure that would have broken his leg, but we'll ignore that for now.
Do you honestly?
As he falls to the ground, he then finds the scrunched up note thanks to Bumpy knocking him down. Some could even argue that Bumpy saw the note first and then kindly nudged Kenji in the right direction. But this is our first major scene that's different as to the other storyline. They read out the note in the exact same way as to the other story. You again get to choose if you go to Main Street or the tunnels to find out where Hidden Adventure is. However, as the campers start leaving, Bumpy notices a rock rolling towards her in a similar fashion as per to the other storyline. She turns around to inspect the rock before being tricked by Blue the Velociraptor and lured away from the campers. Blue does this to separate the vulnerable campers from Bumpy, who is protecting them, again showing off her clear intelligence. Blue then attacks, and Ben thankfully gets away from the jaws of Blue and then makes his way over to Bumpy for protection, and also to make sure that she's okay. A fight breaks out between Blue and Bumpy, where Bumpy knocks Blue to the ground with the club of her tail. Bumpy charges down Blue, who then dodges her attack. She's shocked by the force that just recently hit her and decides not to pursue Ben and Bumpy fleeing from the danger, and everyone leaves her behind in her raptor paddock. And that's where it ends. Now, if I were you, I'd recommend bringing Bumpy along for a little bit more fun and story along the way, as it's for sure a lot more interesting and has a better action sequence than not bringing her at all. I do also believe that this is the only time we see her throughout this interactive episode, as she decides to return back to camp after this segment if you choose to bring her along. So if you choose not to bring her along, you won't ever see her again throughout this episode. So there you have it. That is what happens when you choose to bring or not to bring Bumpy in Camp Cretaceous Hidden Adventure. There's a lot more to cover, so be sure you're subscribed to the channel for more Jurassic World content, and don't forget to also like the video if you happen to enjoy. Let me know what other alternatives you'd like to learn more from in this interactive episode. But for today, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you're all staying safe out there, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye. Hello, hi, you. Did you enjoy the video? just a little reminder to press that like button and also subscribe. I just want to thank my Patreons for this month on screen right here, as giving me that little extra support really does go a long way. But anyways, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day.